Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. I'm Adam Lamparello, here with my fantastic co-host, Gabriel Pickup, and we're glad you're here. If you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We've got a really special show here for you today. First, as always, we're going to have our pick updates, and then in the second segment, we're going to talk about the 5 best seasons in Rutgers football history. But before we do that, we have a surprise for everybody tonight. We have yet another co-host coming on to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. His name is Donovan Gibbs. And we are bringing Donovan on the screen. Donovan, welcome to the show. For everybody watching, here's Donovan's background. He is an offensive lineman at Long Island University. He knows football and he knows the players at Rutgers, so he's going to be able to give an original and fresh perspective that's going to make this show even greater than it has been. So, Donovan, welcome to the show. We're thrilled you're going to be here, and we certainly welcome your perspective.
Thank y'all for letting me be a part of the Voice of College Football family here at Rutgers. I'm very excited to be a part. Also, I am a co-host or just one of the hosts of 88.1 FM WCWP's Sports Shark Tank, airing live Monday through Thursdays from 5 to 6 p.m. live from LIU Sports Radio. And I'm also part of Listening with KNN, Fox 1340 AM, 96.6 FM out of Hopeville, Virginia. I'm excited to be a part of this and be able to give that perspective of on the field and off the field.
Absolutely. And Rutgers at the Voice of College Football is the place to be. And with the season only a little over a month away, the shows are going to be exciting. We're going to be commenting after every game. We're going to be having players on the show, and we're going to give you a perspective that supports Rutgers football as we head into the 2025 season. So without further ado,
yes, sir.
We have, as always, our weekly pick updates. Gabe, why don't you take it away? Start the show for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like one of my pickup dates may have gotten leaked there, unfortunately, but it's all good. That's a slip up. It happens. Honestly, though, Donovan, welcome. You make the show so much better already. Can't wait to continue it. But now let's continue with the rest of the updates. And like Jason says, yes, shout out to the LIU Sharks. So we get on to the first pickup date, and boy, am I happy about this because I have been whining nonstop about this. We finally have an athletic director, a permanent athletic director at Rutgers University, Kelly Zinn, who was serving as executive deputy athletic director and chief operating officer at LSU, the direct report for the LSU football program, and worked with President Tate for just under 3 years. So I can finally shut up about us needing an athletic director after all this time.
Yeah, and Gabe, this has President Tate's fingerprints all over it. He's going back to LSU, hiring people he knows are winners. This is good for Rutgers culture, and it's good that we finally have a permanent athletic director.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we have some winning culture. And, I was always a supporter of President Tate because of his background at LSU. I may have been a little harsh on him when it came to the athletic director hire, because when we got Giovanni, that was an interim hire, and none of us liked the sound of that after having an interim for a year. So I guess I apologize, President Tate. No more slander on my part.
Sounds good.
I'm a fan of the pickup primarily because the previous athletic directors are during an era of Rutgers football that hasn't had that much general success compared to what Kelly Zinn's going to be bringing in from LSU. We just saw, at least the hiring of Brian Kelly, this team for LSU has typically been a top 15 team in college football. So her bringing not only that type of experience, but also Power 4 experience. We've seen how LSU is a primary big pipeline out of the SEC conference. So bringing that type of experience into a Big Ten, where we all know the current Big Three of the conference has been Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, it brings a lot of just powerful experience to know that, okay, I've been at a school where we've been at the top or the cream of the crop of that conference. I can bring that type of experience to Rutgers to bring them to the cream of the crop, because for the most part, they have the roster to do it. It's just now the front office is starting to formalize into a successful foundation.
Yeah, I was actually saying in a meeting prior to this that when it comes to the Big Ten, right, you have the 1 through 5 basically solidified. you throw in Oregon and whether it's Illinois or Washington, and around that sixth or seventh spot when you're ranking these Big Ten teams, that's where it's up in the open. Anywhere from 6, 7-ish to honestly 13 or 14. Like every other team in that mix can pretty much fit anywhere depending on who you ask. So if you ask me, maybe right now the future is belonging to, like you said, Donovan, the Ohio States, the Penn States, the Michigans. You want to throw Oregon in there. But for the future, there's definitely an opening in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and you know what I really love about this is I love getting people from places like LSU. They come from a winning culture. They want to win national championships. They will tolerate nothing less, and they certainly won't tolerate, mediocrity. And I think that this is a great pickup for us. And once again, it continues that trajectory in the right direction.
Yeah, and another thing with LSU is she was the direct report for football, but there's an argument that LSU is the best well-rounded athletic program in the country. It's an argument because they're really good at baseball. They win the College World Series. It seems like every other year. Their
they
football
have a good women's basketball program as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't forget baseball, College World Series champs.
Golf. You want to throw golf in there? It's all over the place with LSU. So I'm happy that we're getting.
Golf is not a sport.
Yeah, and you can also say the similar thing with just how Rutgers is currently on the rise when it comes to basketball. Like, for example, the top 5 prospects in the NBA draft last year, both of them were teammates at the same time at Rutgers University. So the whole just athletic foundation of Rutgers when it comes to the men's basketball, the women's basketball side is starting to pick up as well. I've been seeing a lot from a lot of their guard play that they're bringing into next season. And now with football starting to come under the rings and starting to show that they have a lot of talent to make some noise in the Big Ten. Right now, this is the perfect fit for Kelly Zinn. She wanted to take that next step, and why not do it at for a lot of people, I say, either the second best conference in college football entirely or the first best conference in college football entirely.
Yeah, great point.
And when you look at Pisari leaving from interim athletic director to a permanent role, you could say with Zinn, she left a deputy role to come here and be the athletic director. It's a very similar linear step up when it comes to the hire. So that's one of the reasons that, if we go back to Jason's point here, that's one of the reasons I would say she came is because of job security. And also, like we talked about with the basketball team, the excitement of something new on the rise. And I wanted to ask you, Donovan, as a player, do you guys look at the politics of sort of like athletic programs, like the athletic director, the deputy, all of that? Or are you guys more, I know you can't necessarily speak for everyone, but the guys in your locker room, do you sort of more just channel in on the team?
For a lot of players, they just channel in on the team and just try to focus on situations that they can alter or whatever they can control. While some players, they try to look at over the overall foundation. I'm one of the people that try to look at the overall foundation of just like how not only just the athletic directors, but also just how the communications and everything is working, because you're only as strong as your higher ups. So I preferably look at athletic director situations because they are the foundation for the culture. You can only go as far as with a successful athletic director because they're the primary people that look for coaches. They're the primary people for the coaches to look for assistant coaches and going down the list of coaching positions for a team. So it's an important factor to look at because it shows a lot of the success that a school has or what a school is trying to build in terms of culture, like Adam was saying before. Miss Zinn comes from a winning culture at LSU, and Rutgers is currently trying to go back to that winning culture that they saw in the late 2000s under Greg Schiano. That's the primary reason why they hired Greg Schiano back in 2020 to go back to that time of when Rutgers was a formidable opponent in their conference. Primarily at that time, it was the Big East, but they're trying to do the same thing in the Big Ten. So for players, they kind of look into the politics of things, but they don't really try to. They're more focused on just whatever they can control. But it's always a good thing for a player to stay aware of just the overall situation that a team has when it comes to either athletic directors or just coaching situations.
Yeah, that's very valid. And Pinsnipe Husker, it's funny you say this because if you're talking about the within a 200-mile radius, Very, very polite of you to use FUG instead of the other word. But you can also make that argument about Rutgers for the longest time. I mean, we're smack in the middle of two of America's biggest cities and one of the world's biggest cities. And for a while, they were choosing the Penn States, the Ohio States, teams that are a lot further away than Rutgers. So, the Cleveland Browns of football, that's a tough title to give LSU. And
you can't give LSU that title primarily because they just won a championship not even a decade ago. 2019, they just won their last championship. They just had a Heisman winner 2 years ago at that, and they could have had a Biletnikoff winner as well. Rest in peace to Kyron Lacey.
Yeah.
He was going to be most likely a Biletnikoff watch list player going into this season. So you can't really call them the Cleveland Browns. If you're going to call them any sort of team, you could say they're possibly like an LA Chargers or a Baltimore Ravens type of team where like they have the talent to do so, but some reason they never get over the hump. Kind of like how last year LSU was in a good position midway through the season. They were able to defeat Ole Miss, which helped with their ranking, and they had Alabama coming at home during homecoming. All they really had to do was win that game, and their hopes for the college football players would stay alive, and we saw what happened that night.
Yeah.
You can't really say they're like the Cleveland Browns because the Cleveland Browns doesn't have a history of success that LSU personally has.
Not since
really has a talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that game last year in Death Valley, Jalen Milroe just ran all over LSU, and Garrett Nussmeier just was way off through two interceptions, had another fumble. Not a good game for LSU, but I like what Rutgers is bringing to its university with President Tate, with our new athletic director, and with Coach Schiano at the helm. This is a winning culture. And Gabe, we've talked about this on prior shows. We're making inroads into North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. We're getting players that would typically go to other places. So when you put all that together, I would say if I had to compare Rutgers to a team in the NFL right now, it would be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, without necessarily the historical accolades, right?
Yes, without the Jack Lamberts of the world, a future projection.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that when one of our best players of all time, if not the best, is Ray Rice, who is a Ravens legend. I don't know how the Steelers would like that, but
if I was going to compare Rutgers' current situation to an NFL team right now, I would say they're on a team looking up. They have a lot of young players on the rise and just a lot of just new momentum coming in. I would say they're kind of like the Denver Broncos per se because they just started. They got a coach that knows how to win coming back into a coaching situation where they can win. They have a lot of good youth. They were able to bring in a lot of good players through the portal as well. Kind of similar situation that the Broncos were just in during free agency. They were able to get Tali Hufanga from San Francisco, who was my personal favorite signing for any sort of secondary throughout the entire NFL offseason. But that's a different story for a different day. But I would say overall, Rutgers looks like a team that's more up and coming, kind of like a Denver Broncos. You could kind of say like a Chargers. You can also say teams such as I would say like the Chicago Bears, teams that are just young and they kind of have a vision on what's going to happen over the next 5 years.
Yeah, and like we've had 2 consecutive winning seasons, whether it's 7-6 or not. It's still, if you look at that in comparison to the years before Schiano, when it took us like 100-something losses to get to 10 wins. Like, I'll take it. So I got some more news here, but any final thoughts on that?
The one last thing we want to say about Kelly Zinn, the new athletic director, you have to come on the show. Okay? We want to welcome you to Rutgers University, have you on the show, talk about your vision for helping Rutgers take that next step into the elite of college football.
Kelly, if you're watching this, please contact us or we'll contact you. It'll be a perfect opportunity to
tell Coach Schiano to come on the show. We've been asking him for months. Come on, Coach. We're all from New Jersey. All right, we love you. We support you. All right, come on the show. All right, that's it. And Ethan, you too. All right, go on.
100%. All right, next up, defensive end, edge rusher. Wadiq Collier reclassifies from 2026 to the class of 2025, and he is immediately joining the program in the training camp. I don't know if he was there today, but I said immediately, so it must be starting today. So he was ranked as the number 92 overall prospect for the class of 2026, according to On3. Listed as the number 8 prospect in Pennsylvania. Listed as a 4-star prospect, 6'7", 215 pounds, graduating from Newman Goretti High School in Philadelphia. Now, my take is I'm happy we're getting another guy this next year. I wonder if it's worth the risk to reclassify for guys that are physically or if it's worth the risk to reclassify against guys that are physically bigger than you when you're already highly regarded as a prospect, such as Collier.
I would say that this was a major move for Rutgers because, like we just said in the previous segment, just about how teams Rutgers is starting to get players in these different states, especially Pennsylvania. Typically, I would say, regards players coming out of Philadelphia, that's always been the hotbed for Penn State. Whether it was just draft prospect Abdul Carter for last couple of years, Penn State typically gets a lot of their players out of Philadelphia, so Rutgers is starting to be able to take a lot of their 4-stars out of that area is a major upgrade. And I know some players, because I have a couple of players on my team currently that are reclassified. A lot of players coming out of high school, they just want to get to college and get started. Because for the most part, if you have a plan of what you're going to do and where you can play, and you have people that have believed that you can play, it doesn't matter if you're 17, 18. One of the best receivers in the entire country last year was 17 years old in Ryan Williams. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter. If you can play, you can play. It's just he's going to be in a good system where a lot of the training staff is going to try to get him to a playing weight so he can show his abilities onto the field. Right now, he's still kind of underweight at his current weight up. I think it's like 245, 250. So they're going to try to put him in a good strength and conditioning program. He has a lot of vets to look up to. He might get some snaps this year for certain because there's no way you can pull a 4-star from Rutgers out of all situations and not have him play on the field. And it also bolsters their depth. They were able to get easily a top 5 edge rusher in the college football season last year, Eric O'Neal, through the transfer portal. And now they're able to add on to that with a 4-star and Wadiq Collier. And they could possibly get his brother too. He's class of 2029. He's just starting to get offers. So I'm excited to see how well this works out. And for the most part, I really see Wadiq making some noise. And the ceiling right now, freshman All-American or freshman All-Big Ten. And then the floor is just playing 3-4 games.
Yeah. One other thing, Adam, I wanted to say before I hand the floor back off to you. My apologies. So we're talking about how Philadelphia and Pennsylvania as a whole is a Penn State minefield. So I'm looking at 247 Sports' top 20 for 2026 prospects. Before Wadiq reclassified, we had 4 guys in the top 20. Now we have 3. Tyler Duell, offensive tackle from Westchester East. He's number 17. We got Elias Cody Koch, wide receiver, number 15. Tavion Branch, who just committed recently, actually, number 14 prospect in Pennsylvania. So we have the second most prospects in the top 20 of Pennsylvania that in the class of 2026. But unfortunately, yes, it is Penn State. They got number 18, number 10, 9, 6, 5, 3, and 2. They have 6 guys in the top 20. But it's better than 7 or 8, right? We're one of the only schools that are keeping up with them. Outside of that, it's just 1 or 2 guys per university.
Yeah, and this is really something new for Rutgers. I mean, when you go back to the 90s, the early 2000s even, Rutgers never got these types of players. So there's something about the culture at Rutgers, the way that Schiano is impressing recruits during those visits. And I think just the sense that Rutgers is a team that really is on the rise. And it's a place where you have a great chance of getting playing time immediately, playing against the most elite competition, and developing as a person and a football player. So I think it offers the whole package. Yeah, and Donovan, Adam and I were saying really since we got Jared Smith out of from Georgia, he chose us over Georgia Tech, and Auburn, I believe, were his top 4, including us. We were saying that kind of kickstarted this whole movement in terms of recruiting. Do you think that Jared Smith was sort of the guy for that, or do you think it goes a little earlier?
100%. And it's really just when it comes to players going to certain schools, it's kind of like a domino effect. If you're seeing one of the best players in the country choose this school and they're interested in you, that means not only you have the opportunity to play with this highly touted prospect, but also it's an opportunity to show that, hey, this might be the new spot for everybody to go to. And like we've seen it throughout times and times again. I really think of, for example, just for historical context, those mid 2010 Clemson teams where they were for the most part rivaling Alabama, and their recruiting pitch was, if you want to go to a school and still have fun playing the sport that you're playing, you should come here. And it's primarily reason why I see Rutgers as like this new hotbed now for a lot of these prospects and transfers. And we just saw with Smith, he's just the starting domino to knock down for everybody else to start coming to Piscataway, New Jersey.
Yeah, because when they see that a 4-star or a 5-star is coming, then other players are going to say, wow, there must be something to Rutgers. And that domino effect, like you said, that's a great point. So things are looking up. Now, the season is only a few weeks away, so it's going to be exciting to see how it all plays out.
I'm still waiting for that 5-star prospect. We're getting a lot more 4-stars nowadays, which I am very grateful for, because in college football, it feels like 3 stars are you have potential, you can play at this level. 4 stars are you certainly can play at this level, and 5 stars are you're a dime among many. So
knowing just how Jersey football is in general, seeing how they're, for the most part, if you're going to talk about just states that have the best high school football, Jersey's starting to become in that 4th or 5th spot. So a lot of the 5-stars from Jersey are starting to pop up more and more. So I'm excited to see Rutgers, knowing that their main pipeline has been New Jersey overall. They can actually start taking advantage of that homegrown talent that's starting to come in these later classes.
Yeah.
That's why I hope we're not the Browns of college football.
I mean, in the 90s, when I was at Bergen Catholic High School, the star players would go to Ohio State or Notre Dame or, Michigan. Now, a lot of them are staying home. And, outside of Texas, Florida, and California, I think Jersey is, one of the best places for, recruiting talent in football. Any other updates, Gabe?
Just one more, but, it's nothing breaking per se. Training camp started today, so it's officially the season of 2025 for college football. I'm excited to see what it brings. A few more weeks. The amount of weeks left, it's down to single digits now. So, a couple months away, it'll creep up on us before we know it.
I feel terrible for the Rutgers football team, and I'll tell you why. Today was the first day of camp in this weather.
Yeah.
And it's going to be worse tomorrow. My heart goes out to you, because I think Donovan, as a football player, you would probably be the first to say, people don't see what goes on behind the scenes and the grind and the hard work and the hell that players go through, in training camp and throughout a season. So,
August,
this early part of August, when it comes to just fall camp, for the fans that are not getting an opportunity to just watch on the sidelines or just getting their typical updates through us or any sort of just other media, this is going to be the slowest 2 weeks of your life, most likely. But for players on the field, it usually goes by in a snap. It starts August 1st, and then in a blink of an eye, it's already August 15th, and you're already on your final scrimmage before you start prepping for games. So it's, for the most part, especially as an athlete, those hot days, it really just depends on when you have practice. At least for us, we typically have practice earlier in the morning, so we kind of beat that heat in the morning. Some do it during the midday where the sun's already blasting. It's just about staying hydrated and just your coaches knowing that we got to go at a certain tempo so we don't overwork ourselves and lead to injuries. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to camp, it's about showing that competition, but also getting all your troops to the race week 1.
What's the water to Gatorade ratio out there when you're practicing?
For me personally, for every 2 cups of Gatorade, I'm usually just on that water jug, just getting me at least 4 or 5 squirts of water. I've always been preferably more water than Gatorade because Gatorade usually goes through your body at least more faster for me personally. So it's just about just taking advantage, as well as getting all your hydration the night before bed, before practice in the morning, drinking after practice, and just keeping that mentality throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a better balance on that. That's good education, too, for everyone that's going to be outside tomorrow and just for August in general. It doesn't get talked enough about talked about enough, really.
Yeah, very true.
Also, Donovan, I saw this. What do you think of this comment? You think there's enough Donovans out there? You think there should be more?
I see a lot of them. A lot of them are really just becoming more of a last name than first names. But there's a lot of successful Donovans in this athlete world. Donovan Mitchell, shout out Billy Donovan, currently still the coach of the Chicago Bulls. It's a lineage name that brings a lot of just strong sports history. So I'm happy to be a part of that family tree.
I tell you, you got a football name, Donovan Gibbs. That's a very big football name.
Yes.
Yeah. And Donovan, first name, a popular quarterback. Last name, a legendary head coach.
And running back, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jason O says that LIU is going to Gainesville for game 1. Is that true? You guys are playing Florida in
yes,
game 1?
Sir. August 30th, we play Florida at, I think, 8 p.m. I'm excited to be in that atmosphere. I already know how loud the Swamp's going to be. And I've been very prepared and just keeping my head clear, just knowing that it doesn't matter what type of players that they have on the field. They're just athletes just like us, and there's no difference outside of just the logo on our helmet.
That saying is exactly what we have been trying to tell these guys at Rutgers since we started this show together.
That's right. And I'll tell you, I've been to the Swamp, and I got to tell you, it's going to be such an awesome experience for you being on that field. So congratulations and best of luck to you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be in an SEC scenario. Last couple of years, we played a lot of Big 12 teams. I still remember my first trip, sophomore year, going to Baylor. And that after that, I've gotten that experience of being a fan, being in these areas. Because for the most part, growing up, you just see these stadiums on TV, and you're just like, man, I really want to play there one day. And once you get that out of your system, typically you get like a tour of the stadium the day before a game. We do that, do a little walkthrough. That gets out of the body, and just you're back to being a football player again. It's no more just being a fan.
Absolutely.
I didn't know you guys do tours. I always thought you just go in blind and you're like, oh my God, there's a lot of people here.
That's what I thought going into college, but like it's very prepared and very just tactical on how the week of a game and just especially the final 2 days of a game, even the plane ride going down to a lot of these states is very tactical on how they move, on how we move. So it's a fun process, and I'm just excited. I just already know that it's going to be in a blink of an eye. We're going to be in Florida August 29th, just preparing in the hotel.
Yes, sir. That's all I got for pick updates.
Well, Gabe, thanks for those great updates as always. So we're going to turn now to our second segment of the show, which is who are the 5 best teams in Rutgers football history? I'm sure there'll be some difference of opinion. But as we look forward to the 2025 season, sometimes it's good to look back and see what made Rutgers good during those years and what do they need to do to be good again this year. So why don't we start out? Donovan, Gabe, why don't you guys go first and second? Tell us what's your first, or not in any particular order, but what's on that top 5 list of yours?
You want to go first, Gabe, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, so you got it. I was going to say, let's go through each of our 5s first, each of our 4s, so on and so on.
All right, so from my criteria for this list, I've really just put primarily winning seasons, a bowl victory, or at least of a bowl appearance, and just strength of schedule at that time. And it's going to be a little bit era dependent. I'm going to have some teams that are more current than previous because just the amount of talent that these teams currently face now is way different than those teams back then. But I'm most likely we're all going to have a similar number 1, but I'm not going to go spoil my number 1 yet. Also, I included just player accolades. Players, if a Rutgers team had a lot of All-Americans or a lot of draft prospects, which during my research, I was shocked to find out a lot of these players even went to Rutgers. As we talked about before with Ray Rice, that was new information to me, and I'm a Ravens fan. So before I go to my number 5, I want to knock off a couple of honorable mentions. I had 2005 team, the 2023 team as well. First year of one of the first successful seasons under the new era, Greg Schiano, and with running back Colin Monangai, as well as the 1958 team that won the MAC championship, the Middle Atlantic Conference, which was the first time I even knew Rutgers was in the MAC. Because when they typically think of the MAC, you think of just North, Buffalo, Miami of Ohio University, go Bobcats. So for number 5, I have the 2009 team that went 9-4 under Coach Graciano. This team under head coach Graciano saw several players drafted into the NFL, including wide receiver Kenny Britt, Mike Teal, and Hall of Fame safety Jason McCourty. Specifically, the McCourty twins were on this team as well. Two of the best safeties that I've personally seen overall in my life. In my lifetime, one of the two best safety tandems, and it's just shocking to me more and more how New England was able to get both of them at the same time. So I have them at number 5, and this was a team as well that had quarterback Tom Savage and receiver Tim Brown just completely lighting it up in the East.
Interesting that Tom Savage had the most professional success out of them too. So my number 5, you said 2005 for yours, right?
2009.
2009, okay. Yeah, I got 2007 because you had some very similar names. 2007 for my number 5. Now, it was the year after the amazing 06 year, so 8-5 compared to 11-2 could be seen as disappointing. I don't see it that way. I think 8-5, 2-3 against the Big East is a little bad, but 8-5 is solid no matter what school you are, as long as you're not one of the top 3 in each conference per se. But for us, most experts would call 07 one of the strangest seasons of college football. So, 8-5, 2-3, it sounds like it could be a little better. But when you look at LSU, the champions and the 2 seed, having 2 losses that year, and the fact that there were so many large upsets, I'm picking this primarily because of our enormous victory over number 2 ranked South Florida, who were undefeated that year and up until then. And that was probably one of the biggest ones in Rutgers history. It gets overlooked because of Louisville in 06 a lot. So I look at this team, I see, like we said, with Mike Teal, his serviceability, Ray Rice out of the backfield with 2,012 yards rushing. And by the way, that's foreshadowing another year I have on my list later on. And he had 24 touchdowns rushing. He had 1 receiving, so he had 25 altogether. And 2 receivers in Kenny Britt and Tiquan Underwood both had 1,100-plus yards receiving.
Yeah, so Gabe, that was one of my picks, so I'm going to X that out. So I only now have 4 choices. A very good pick. These are in no particular order, but I have to go back to the year after I was born, 1975, and the year before my idol Elvis Presley died on August 16th, 1977. That 1976 Rutgers team under Coach Frank Burns, 11-0, number 17th in the AP, declined an invitation to the Independence Bowl to play McNeese State. But that team was a powerhouse, definitely worthy of being on the list.
I have them at number 2.
No,
we canceled each other out.
Yes, sir.
For number 4, you brought up the 2007 team. I have personally the 2008 team, with the team finishing the season with a 7-game winning streak and a bowl victory, as well as Mike Teal, who led the team with 3,418 passing yards. Kenny Britt, 87 receptions, 1,300 yards. That team was just, for the fact that this was still a year with Ray Rice on that roster, or I think, no, this was the year before Ray Rice got drafted. This team was still just a high-powered offense, and I have 3 other high-powered offenses to finish off this list.
Okay.
Yeah, my number 4, who I foreshadowed in my last by listing Ray Rice's rushing yards. My number 4 team is the 2012 team, 9-4, 5-2 against the Big East. We had Gary Nova up front, Brandon Coleman. But you look at the defense led by Logan Ryan in the secondary and the beef up front, as Adam likes to say. You need beef to be a successful defense. And we had that. We had several guys going into the NFL up front. Logan Ryan was one of the few in the back, but, I mean, he was the captain of that defense and one of the best players that we've had probably over the past 15 years since the Ray Rice, Kenny Britt era ended. That's my number 4.
Yeah, great picks, guys. So maybe it's because I'm older than both of you that I keep going back in time to 2 years before President Kennedy was shot, 1961 under Coach Bateman. 9-0 Rutgers team, including a 25-point comeback victory against Columbia. I guess they played Columbia at the time, an Ivy League school. That was a great team. And, one of those teams that you saw like in 1976, there's spots where Rutgers has had powerhouse teams. 1961 was one of them.
You mentioned 2012 as your number 14, Gabe. I have them at number 3, primarily because not only that they shared a 5-2 conference record in the Big East with teams like Louisville, Cincinnati, Syracuse. They were ranked 4th nationally in opponents' points per game, only allowing 14 points. They were ranked 6th in rushing defense, only allowing 97 yards on the ground. And this is against a Louisville that had Teddy Bridgewater, Devontae Parker, Cincinnati that had the Kelsey twins and George Wynn, and then Syracuse, who had future Giants quarterback, preseason Hall of Famer in my eyes, watching their Giants preseason games, Ryan Nassib at the QB position, and they were still only 5-2 in that conference while having a generational great defense and overall that's been one of the best defenses that Rutgers has had over, I would say, in the 2010s at that. So that's why I primarily have them at number 3, because just the strength of the opponents that they were playing against. Teddy Bridgewater, who ended up being a first-round pick for the Vikings that year. The Kelsey twins, who are both on the path to be Hall of Famers for Cincinnati. That team was still one of the best teams in that conference, despite having all of these star players in surrounding them in the Big East. That's why I have them at number 3.
I mean, it's easy to overlook the Big East because of what the powerhouses are now, but that was no joke back in the 2010s. And it was one of the last years that we played in the Big East, and we took advantage. We didn't know at the time, but we were setting a standard that we belonged in the Big Ten. That's very well done, that pick. My number 3, and this is why I asked earlier in our group chat what the criteria was. Like, is it just best or most important? Because for me, my number 3 is the most important year in present Rutgers history in terms of what it set up. 2014. It was the first year in the Big Ten, and we went 8-5. We went 2-3 against the Big Ten, but it showed we belonged against the toughest of competition, even with the conference change, and it set the standard that we aren't going anywhere. We won the Quick Lane Bowl against UNC with senior Gary Nova and Leonte Carew. I want to say his name correctly. I think it's Carew, leading the way with 55 catches over 1,000 yards. So to me, we had some really bad years after that, but that first year is probably one of the most important years in Rutgers history.
You can say it's primarily the reason why Rutgers hasn't really gotten relegated to a different conference or gotten kicked out of this conference, because it's really a lot of teams, especially going into that first year being in a new conference. We've seen it. I would say, for example, just like last year, 2 years ago, when James Madison first made it into the Sun Belt, as well as Old Dominion going into the Sun Belt. We're currently looking at it right now with Delaware's appearance going into the CUSA. Teams that go into a new conference, especially a conference that's like higher than a lot of people would have expected, whether it's an FCS school going into an FBS group of 5 or an FBS group of 5 going into a Power 4 currently. A lot of that pressure is on you because a lot of the teams that are looking at you are looking at this as an easy scratch off of a win for their schedule, because they think that you're not supposed to be there. And what Rutgers did in 2014 is very, very just important, because it just showed that they deserve to be a part of the Big Ten. And we're seeing how the Big Ten has moved currently, adding in new schools, kicking out a lot of schools as well. It really was what kept them in the Big Ten.
Like, to me, for that year, if you're going to consider it anything, and we didn't make the playoffs, we didn't win enough to qualify for anything more than the aforementioned bowl. But to me, if you look at Rutgers as the AFC and the Big Ten as the rest of the NFC, then we were the Joe Namath New York Jets that year, because we proved that we belonged in the conference. Again, if we had went, say, 5-8, 4-9, and then followed it up with the abysmal years following, like you said, we wouldn't be in the Big Ten anymore. So to me, that's how important it is. It's Joe Namath important.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. Once again, I'm going to go back in time to not 1976, but I'm going to go to 1975, the year I was born, once again under Coach Burns. 9-2 Rutgers team while they were, competing as independents and outscored their opponents 347-91. Kurt Edwards led the rushing attack with 1,157 yards, and Mark Twitty for the receiving corps with 544 receiving yards. So again, 61, 76, 75. Those were bright spots where Rutgers was a nationally relevant football team and program. So I know I'm the older one in the group, and that's why I go back to the great decades like the 70s, the 60s. But those teams were formidable and shouldn't be forgotten.
100%. They were the foundation. And I'm just going to, for my number 2, you talked about how in 75 that team was very just put Rutgers on the map. My number 2 is the 2006 team because that's what put Rutgers honestly on a national scale in a similar situation that we saw the year after with West Virginia under that Pat White era at him at quarterback. No one expected Rutgers to win against Louisville, and that's why the pandemonium in Piscataway has been one of the not only just a reference moment in just Rutgers history, but just New Jersey sports history outside of the Devils three-peat in the early 2000s in the Stanley Cup. If I remember, Louisville was supposed to be a double-digit favorite going into that game, and they got stunned. And this team outside of that game also had upsets against UNC. They won 21-16. They started off the program's highest ranking at that time at an AP ranking of 12, starting off 9-0, which has been I think the last time they started off 9-0 in the school's history till this day, as well as winning their first bowl game in program history with a 2006 Texas Bowl victory against the Kansas State Wildcats in a blowout 37-10. And Ray Rice as a freshman at that time, as a sophomore at that time, setting a Rutgers rushing record with 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns. So overall, that team is very magical, very comparable to those teams in the 70s where they had a team that no one expected to be that good. And when they played against competition that was supposed to humble them, they ended up humbling that opposition.
Yeah, exactly right. We never got humbled until, like week 10 or 11, but it took a long time. My number 2 team was the 1976 team. We already discussed it, 11-0, and also the most wins in a single season in program history because we've gone undefeated before that, but we never did it with 11 games. And if you do that nowadays, I mean, besides that Florida State team, because of Jordan Travis's injury, you're guaranteed a playoff spot. Unfortunate that they didn't get it, but it proved to be the right decision. But if you look at us, if you can't control your schedule, and if your team stays healthy and you go 11-0, 12-0, whatever it is that year, you're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, especially with the depth there is nowadays. So to me, you can't necessarily say we face the toughest competition, but we face formidable competition. And year in, year out in the 70s, we were losing 1 or 2 games or 0 games. So that's why I have them in my number 2.
Absolutely. And I don't have any more teams because, Donovan, you're right on the money with 2016. That was my top choice. And for all the reasons that you stated, that is definitely at the top of any list.
What was your number?
What was your number 2?
I didn't rank them in particular. Well, I would put 2006 as number 1. But, Gabe, you canceled me out with 2007. And, Donovan, you talked about 2006, so I don't want to be redundant for the audience. But at least we're in agreement, and that's a good thing.
I'm going to be a little bit redundant because Gabe, you had the 1976 team as your number 2 team. Adam, you had them as your number 5. I personally have them as their number 1 because even on the Rutgers Hall of Fame website, they said this 1976 Rutgers football team is remembered among the best in the program's history. And I can't, even if their own website is saying that, they're definitely number 1 for a reason. And not only did I have to doing the research on it, this team was just amazing for teams coming out of the 70s at that time. And I'm shocked that a lot of the players that really made a gigantic impact didn't really have a professional career going into players such as Nate Toran or overall the Rutgers sack leader having I think that season he had 19 sacks or 18 sacks that season, as well as Jim Hughes at that linebacker position. But you have to just look at the defensive numbers. Held teams to only 7 points per game. 11 games, only giving up an entire touchdown through 60 minutes is impressive, no matter if you're playing in the 70s, if you're playing in the 80s, if you're playing in the 90s, if you're playing nowadays in the 2000s, and leading the nation in rushing, leading the defensively in rush defense at 83 yards a game, and total defense 179 yards a game. Very just shocking numbers to me, because nowadays not even the best teams right now can hold teams under 20 yards of offense currently.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows just how the evolution of the game has gone from just being very just defensively gritty to just more, I would say, offensively tactical. But what Frankie Burns did for this program as the head coach in finishing 17th in the AP poll, it's crazy how an 11-0 team only holding teams to a touchdown per game for 11 games in the entire season didn't finish in the top 10. But I digress. This was easily hands down. If you put all the teams against each other in the tournament, 76 is winning every single time.
Agreed.
Okay. You think that transcends eras, that team?
What Nate Toran was doing on that football field, just from my research and just how he was getting to the quarterback easily, especially with just how the rules are nowadays in regards to how offenses for blocking, he was getting through what people would call holding calls today.
Yeah.
And he was still getting double-digit sack seasons. So putting him in nowadays, if this team is one of those few teams I would say in college football, especially for Rutgers, that is very transcendent through different generations of the sport.
Well, I think 1976 and 2006, in my opinion, despite the order, those are clearly the top two teams in Rutgers history. I don't think that there's a third team that you can say goes over either of those teams. But I do have 2006 as my number one team. We talked about it already, and yes, it is redundant. 11-2, 5-2 against the Big East. That incredible win against Louisville that overshadowed the South Florida win the year following, unfortunately, because that was a really good win too. But my main point that I'm surprised wasn't addressed yet was that this team was, we talked about it briefly with Ray Rice, but it was a team full of sophomores and juniors doing this. It wasn't seniors. And so they were doing it against guys that were technically a little bit bigger than them. And, they were still, they were carrying that sort of New Jersey arrogance week in and week out. And people didn't like it outside of New Jersey, but we never got humbled until the later weeks. So to me, that's the most impressive year, but 76 and 06 in no particular order are the clear 1 and 2.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, guys, great discussion, and particularly timely discussion as we get ready for the football season coming up in just over 1 month. And Donovan, once again, good luck in Gainesville. That's going to be an awesome experience. So,
I wanted to ask real quick, because I see we don't have any callers at the moment. Do you guys want to run through that Shrine Bowl 1000 Rutgers watch list or no?
I'm down to, because just seeing the certain players, especially players that I've talked about earlier on the show in regards to just Eric O'Neal, and just overall my take on that is that after seeing what you got with Smith from Georgia coming into the school, and then getting Eric O'Neal, and now getting another reclassified edge rusher, Radiq Collier, this defense is looking very formidable against offenses that we know, especially in the Big Ten, that are going to be high powered going into next season. Oregon's going to have a high-powered offense. Penn State still has one of their running backs that ran for 1,000 yards last season and had a very good Orange Bowl at that against Notre Dame. And you still have Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith, and still have, even though they have a new quarterback in Julian Sayin and a new running back, that team is still going to be one of the best when it comes to offenses. So being that Rutgers has been able to formidify themselves on the defensive end to withstand all that offensive firepower really balances this team out, and I'm really excited.
Yeah. And there's a lot of defenders on this list. So we got 7 guys. So it's the Shrine Bowl 1000, which is just 1,000 guys that are believed to be eligible to play in the 2026 East-West Shrine Bowl, and then ultimately the 2026 NFL Draft. So out of our squad, we got C.J. Campbell Jr., no Raymond, surprisingly, but C.J. Campbell Jr., Daryl Jabome, Brian Felter, offensive lineman, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, Bo Masco off the defensive back end, and then we got, like you said, Eric O'Neal, D.T. Sheffield, D lineman Bradley Weaver, and offensive lineman Gus Zielinskis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great list, and I think that it properly recognizes, that we have some serious talent on this team. Like I've said on past shows, though, Gabe, the key to Rutgers' success this year is going to be winning the intangibles, the fourth and inches, the time of possession, the turnover battle, getting more than 4 yards on first down. But most importantly, the defensive line has to disrupt the quarterback. They don't have to have a million sacks, but they have to disrupt the quarterback. And I think we've got the kind of transfers with the size and speed that can do that. If they can do that with the talent in our secondary, we could be a very formidable defense.
100%.
Yeah, I feel confident, and like you said before, it's going to come down to those pass rushers. I already talked about how O'Neal is he was one of the highest graded pass rushers last year with only Mike Green being ahead of him. And Mike Green is currently now the second round pick of the Baltimore Ravens, who I'm also excited to see go through a camp. Like adding Bradley Reaver, who is one of the best defensive players in the MAC last season as well, with 8 sacks on the year. A lot of their defensive line that they're bringing in knows how to get to the quarterback. And going into a conference that the Big 12 is known for a lot of their passing game and a lot of mobile quarterbacks as it is. Bryce Underwood in Michigan, Julian Sayin in Ohio State. They have what it takes to disrupt the passer and not be flustered when the passer gets out the pocket. Because we've seen how Ohio State has been able to move when have a QB out of the pocket, whether it's on sprint out or just overall just general scrambles. I will say it's going to come down to their offensive line and what Ethan Kaliakmanis is going to bring to the table. Him at QB, knowing that he's going to be a very just pocket present type of guy. 7 interceptions to only 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions last year. We saw him do a little bit on the ground as well, 377 yards on the ground. But with how this offense is going to be now with DT Sheffield from North Texas, you still have KJ Duff, who we saw in the bowl game last year, really show out, a 6'6", 200-pound receiver that can, for the most part, a lot of teams have been trying to make him a tight end since his time at St. Anthony's, but everybody knew he's a wide receiver. So it's going to come down to if Ethan can get the ball to these playmakers and if these playmakers can continue to show off the legacy that they have shown from their last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think with Ethan, he showed flashes of greatness last year. He's a great team player. He's a tough competitor. He's got good arm strength. The key is going to be consistency and getting that completion percentage up and getting it to those receivers.
So I know that, because we're Rutgers fans, we're going to say, oh, you should have had this guy, But to me, this list not having Kwabena Asamoah and Cam Miller is a little disrespectful. That's just my opinion. And I know, you could say, oh, well, you should get rid of some guys. I don't really know who I would get rid of. Maybe one of the 2 offensive linemen, because Gus Zielinskis and Brian Felter are great. But I feel like Asamoah is sort of the leader of the unit. He was on the all Big Ten watch list last year. So it's a little surprising to me that he's not on this 1,000 watch list particularly.
I'm personally confused on just not Gus, but the other Brian Felter, because primarily he didn't really play that much last year due to injury. So I'm shocked to see that he's still on this Shrine Bowl list. So I guess the season that he had in 2023, very, very at either left guard or right guard is going to play a very high role on him making the Shrine Bowl. But if we're going to replace anybody for Cam Miller, I would have replaced Brian Felter just primarily because we haven't seen him in 2 years.
So you're saying Cam Miller is your guy that you would have put on?
Yeah, I'll put Cam Miller over Brian Felter, just primarily just due to Cam. We saw him play last year compared to Felter, who was out for a long stretch of the season last season.
For Penn State, nonetheless.
Yeah. Sometimes I take these rankings with a grain of salt, but it's good to see that we're getting some recognition. And I think with the influx of these transfers, the defensive line is going to tell the story of how the season goes. If they can disrupt the quarterback, then we're going to have some success because I think the offense is going to be balanced. We've got the wideouts. We've got the depth there. We've got 3 good running backs, 4 actually. So if Ethan elevates his game, we could have a really balanced attack on offense, and we could have a stingy defense that could lead to an 8 or 9 win season.
100%. 9 wins is I don't want to say the ceiling because anything is possible, but every expert would say that you shoot for 9 wins this year when you're looking at our schedule.
Yeah, the key is going to be for Rutgers not to lose winnable games.
Yeah.
Not to lose 14-7 like they did to Nebraska last year, 35-32 to UCLA, and, of course, the Illinois game. They got to, if they're going to get to that 9-win mark, they're going to have to win those close games, and that means winning the intangibles.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to the season of if they can win against teams like Illinois, if they can win against teams like the rival in Maryland, if they can win against teams whether it's like Northwestern, Iowa, Nebraska, those B to C tier Big Ten teams, because for the most part, a lot of people are not going to have them going up against, like I said, Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State this season. And I truly believe with the roster that they have right now, their ceiling is they're going to be able to steal one of those games. Because we're seeing what Michigan has right now. Outside of Bryce Underwood, that team is still very young under a new head coach. They just won 7 games last season. They did beat Ohio State, but outside of that, a lot of their losses were very, very embarrassing. I think for the most part, Rutgers was in that game last season against Michigan throughout the earlier parts of that game. So it's going to come down to if they can beat those mid-level tier of teams in the Big Ten, and if they can steal one against the Big Three.
Yeah, so I think it's Oregon we're facing, not Michigan. Not at least this year.
Yeah.
But Oregon, it's the same thing. They're coming off they were number 1 ranked in the playoffs. I mean, but they lose Dylan Gabriel.
They lost Dylan Gabriel. They lost Tez Johnson.
Yeah.
Lost
I mean, when a team loses a quarterback, it changes the whole dynamic. So we could steal a game against Oregon. I think we have a shot against Penn State, but we'll see. It's going to be an exciting year, and 2026, I think, is going to be a magical season. It's the 2026-27 season.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts as we conclude our 45th episode of Rutgers at the Voice of College Football?
I got 2 things. One, we just dropped at Rutgers VOCFB on Instagram, X, and TikTok. I will send some of the links in the chat again, but make sure you give those a follow. It would be much appreciated on behalf of all of us. And also, Donovan, your first show, fantastic. You said we're looking to see you again in September and then after that, right?
Yeah, once September rolls around, I'm going to try to be as much as possible every week to be a part of this show, because I'm very excited to be a part and try to bring a couple of athletes along the way to appear as guests. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of the Rutgers Voice of College Football family. And I'm excited to continue working and keep learning more about the sport of Rutgers, as well as teaching y'all what it's like to be on the field.
Yeah, sure. Donovan, we're delighted you're here. You bring a lot to this show, and we really look forward to you being a permanent fixture on this show in the coming months and during the season. And best of luck to you as your season gets underway shortly. So if everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in, for your comments. If you like this show, hit that like and subscribe button. As always, we appreciate your support, and we will see you here next Monday, same time, 7 p.m. On behalf of Gabe and Donovan, go Scarlet Knights. We'll see you next week.